tell us just a little bit about your experience at RIT and how it prepared you for what you've become?
Oh, it didn't at all.
Right.
Although economically
Start,
it did.
Start with my name's Bob Asman and blah, blah, blah. Because, start a complete sentence. Like, my name's Bob Asman.
My name is Bob Asman. And when I went to RIT, it was an amazing experience because it was so different from anything I experienced before. I mean, it was very much a technical school, and it was out in the suburbs, and I happened to live in the city, and it was also very expensive, so I had to work pretty much full-time jobs to afford it to get through. And so it was a very intense combination of affording it and making art at the same time, which is, I guess, that's what life has been like ever since. Is paying the bills and making pictures.
So could you just, talking to Keith, tell him, tell us or him, what's the work like? What's the work about that you're putting in the RIT show?
What's it about, or like?
Or how would you describe it, or?
Well, they're sort of figurative pieces. I work in both landscapes, which are very external endeavors. This is a series I started in 2000. Mm-hmm. I want to do it for 2010 if we're still around that long. Yeah. And so I have a good document of this city and sort of, I would say, iconic landscapes. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that thing seemed to express it well enough. And the other thing is the figurative work, which is a totally opposite way of working. Taking the pictures is pretty easy. You just have a naked body in front of you. You keep snapping.
Snapping. It sounds like you're a turtle.
Well, I am to a degree. And then you go in the dark room and you play with different chemistries and that type of thing. Gee, I don't know. Well, we used to work at the Genesee Brewery, and I remember at a time we used to have this Vega, and one of the things that you used to work through the night and then you come into class the next day. But how we could actually make ends meet was not necessarily on the salary they paid, although that was pretty good because it was union wages and all that. But we could also pick up all the empty beer that fell off the lines, and so they were all dented and stuff like that. So we used to load up my Vega and sell beer by the pound to the fraternity houses on campus. We'd load it up and we'd run over to the fraternity houses, which were all lined up in the brick palace, and unload all this beer on them and, pick up $50-$60 from dented cans of Genesee beer. So that was kind of a humorous thing. And it's interesting now, too, what's going on with Diane Arbus. I remember all the debates with the people about, it was Diane Arbus and Minor White, and Diane Arbus represented the devil and evil, and Minor White represented God and good. And you had all these faculty people, kind of like politics today, lining up on two sides of that coin. Yeah. I remember Charlie Arnold and Owen Butler and Betty Hahn. Everyone had their very distinct points of view. And, I always thought that was interesting, but it was almost like, it was total like an inbred politics there, because the real work was being done over at the Visual Studies workshop. And they had people that, in fact, I only lived a couple blocks from there, so it's pretty easy to get to. And they had people that just went in and did stuff. I mean, they weren't, fuddling around with who's good or who's not and all this, political nonsense. It's just they were producing, they were making books, and they were shooting all the time and trying out the new technology, not in a way that was forced on them with the classroom situation, but they actually had it in their hand.
Mm-hmm. So what was it about RIT that created this whole group of people that have become so influential? What was it about the
city was affordable. I remember at the time everyone wanted to live on the East Coast in a city. Yeah. And I tried Washington and that was too expensive, and I moved out to Ohio briefly, but came back here because friends were here, and I saw how cheap and how manageable and how livable the city was. Mm-hmm. And so that's it. I mean, there's not a market here much for photography. That might change, but it's a great place to work.
Just name the names of people you knew from RIT, your generation when you came to Philadelphia, like who were here. I
remember Mary Mankus and Paul Cava. They were the first. And Chuck Isaacs wasn't from RIT, but we had known him through Holly Maxim, too.
She was from RIT?
No, but they were photo people. They were photojournalists. They were working for the Inquirer. And everyone was shooting back then. Mm-hmm. Now most of these people are involved more in I would say the marketing and selling of photographs, but back then everyone was a shooter, And so, that's what we did. We ran around Philadelphia and took pictures all the time. And David Mancini had his gallery going. And let's see, who else? And Paul Cava opened the gallery. and who else? A couple other people. The Book Trader, Peter Heiler opened one. So there are little outlets here and there, but everyone kind of knew everyone. And people drifted around. This is the neighborhood that Man Ray grew up or was born in, and so there's still that whole contingent that kind of lives for photography. There's George Krause lived here, and
Different people.
yeah, this is a great niche for photographic activity. But we're the old people. What's going on now is there's just thousands of young people.
Yeah.
The institutions are cranking them out, and there's not enough time to digest all the images that are coming out now. I know exactly. It's famine. It's famine.
It's worse actually than it was. I mean.
Oh, there's no comparison. In
so
fact, images used to have some sort of a sacred feel about them. Today they don't. Now they're just commoditized, and if you can make money with them, great. If you can't, they don't have much value. It's kind of a Damien Hirst phenomenon.